Welcome. Have you ever wondered what really separates a good company from a truly great one? A lot of the time, it all comes down to the people. But how do they actually find and grow the amazing talent that drives all that success? Well, today we're going to crack open the HR playbook and find out. So, how do they do it? You might think it's just luck or maybe some kind of corporate magic, right? But nope. It's actually a really deliberate process, a playbook, if you will. And that playbook follows a super clear journey. This whole journey, from not even knowing a candidate exists to them having a long-term career, it really boils down to 5 key stages. It all kicks off with figuring out what you need and wraps up with building a career. So let's walk through the whole thing right from the top. Okay, first up, defining the role. Think about it. You wouldn't just start building a house without a blueprint, right? You'd end up with a mess. Well, it is the exact same idea here. You absolutely cannot build a great team without a solid plan. This is where it all begins. And the core tool for this is something called a job analysis. Now, this isn't just making a list of tasks. It's a deep, strategic process. Look, companies that try to wing it here, they almost always end up hiring for the wrong things. And that just leads to frustration, mismatched expectations, and people leaving within a year. It's really about figuring out what success looks like before you even think about posting a job ad. And all of that careful analysis, it leads to one single, incredibly important document: the job description. Now, don't just brush this off as some boring paperwork. Think of it more like the constitution for this role. It's the objective standard that you measure every single candidate against, and it takes all the guesswork and, importantly, a lot of the bias out of the process. All right, so we've got our blueprint. We know exactly who we're looking for. Now it's time for step 2, finding the candidates. This is where we go from just planning to actively casting that net and seeing who's out there. You know, when it comes to recruiting, you're always faced with this big choice. Do you look inside your own company or do you look outside? Promoting internally is awesome for morale, right? People see a path for growth, but it can also lead to a bit of an echo chamber. On the other hand, bringing in someone from the outside injects fresh ideas and new skills. The downside, it's usually riskier and definitely more expensive. The really smart companies, they've got a strategy that balances both. Okay, so the net's been cast and you've got a whole pool of interesting candidates. Now for the really tough part. Stage 3 is all about the selection process. How do you whittle down that big list to find the one person who's the perfect fit? And let me be super clear here. This is not about gut feelings. A really solid selection process uses a ton of different data points. You're looking at their qualifications, of course, but you're also using assessments to check their actual skills and doing deep dives into their past experience. The whole point is to build a complete picture of the person so you can predict how they'll perform in the future, not just how well they interview. So, the offer is signed, the contract's in, we're done, right? Not even close. In fact, a whole new part of the journey is just starting. And that brings us to stage 4, training for success. It's time to give this new hire all the tools they need to absolutely crush it in their new role. You know, the best companies get that generic one-size-fits-all training is just a huge waste of time and money. That is exactly why they start with a needs assessment. Think of it like a diagnostic. It's a way to pinpoint the exact skill gaps. That way, every single dollar and every hour spent on training is targeted at something that's actually going to improve performance. So how is this training actually delivered? Well, it usually comes in 2 main flavors. You've got on-the-job training. This is perfect for hands-on practical skills. You learn by literally doing the work. Then you have off-the-job training. Think workshops, classrooms. This is way better for learning big theoretical ideas or complex skills where you need to be away from the daily grind to really focus. Okay, so we've hired them. We've trained them for the job they have today. But what about the job they're going to have next year or in 5 years? This leads us to our final and maybe the most crucial stage of all, developing for the future. And this is where we see a really essential shift in thinking. See, training is for the job you have right now. Development, that's for the jobs you'll have next. When a company invests in this, they're sending a powerful message. They're saying, we're investing in your entire career path, not just what you can do for us this quarter. Honestly, this is the #1 way to keep your best people from walking out the door. So when you put it all together, this whole process is what makes the difference between just having a job and building a real career. And that really leaves us with one final thing to think about. For you personally, is the role you're in right now, is it just a job? Or is it a genuine path for your own development?